Since the day that he set foot at Chelsea Football Club, Christian Pulisic has been the subject of transfer rumors and uncertainty and just all kinds of rumors and speculation. Part of that due to his injury history, part of that due to some lapses in form, and part of that due to some times where his form was absolutely unbelievable. But today things have changed dramatically. Chelsea has become a part of one of the most interesting stories in all of world football that I can recall in my time watching the sport. It has been announced that Roman Abramovich has been sanctioned and all of his assets, including Chelsea Football Club, have been frozen. Now, what does that mean for Chelsea Football Club? That means that the club can continue to operate as a football club, essentially doing essential things like playing games, like showing up to games, paying players, paying staff. But they're not going to be able to make money as a club, and they're not going to be able to spend money as a club. And that means no more new signings, no more signing players who are out of contract currently, no more selling players who are out on loan, but all this stuff has been thrown into just absolute confusion. So why is this happening? I think the most condensed way that I can possibly say it is that the British government do not want proceeds from the sale of Chelsea or any type of money coming in from Chelsea Football Club to be redirected to the war effort for Russia. And that is the fear. And I'm not the guy to give you a lesson in Russian politics, and there's much better information out there. I know Tifo Football put together a fantastic video on why Roman Abramovich bought Chelsea. But essentially, if you are an oligarch in Russia at the moment, you are serving at the behest of Vladimir Putin, and there is a lot of evidence linking money from the oligarchs to Vladimir Putin going both ways. So there is a lot of fear that Roman Abramovich's sale of Chelsea could lead directly to funding the war in Russia. And that is something that the British government does not want to take part in at all, and that is completely understandable. But what this means in the meantime is that the future of Chelsea Football Club, the future of the club being one of the top teams in world football, the future of all the players is just completely in doubt. This feels like a fairly unprecedented situation. This feels like a club that's been relegated but is still at the top of its league. Chelsea, I think, is number 2 in the table right now and is still one of the favorites in the Champions League at the moment. But it feels like a club that's been relegated. It's going to be really interesting to see what shakes out, particularly for the players at Chelsea, like Cesar Azpilicueta, for instance, who are not under contract next year. What's going to happen with him now that Chelsea cannot sign or sell players? It is very scary and very cautious times over in West London, but particularly for our interests are Christian Pulisic. Football might be over, but MLS is coming back, and Champions League and European soccer are in full swing. From all the latest odds, totals, player performance props, to where the next fired coach is going to land, BetOnline is the #1 spot for all your sports betting needs. Head over to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and receive 50% off your welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use promo code BELIEVE to get started. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline is your source for hockey, boxing, and UFC odds, right to the Olympic coverage, from sports right down to your favorite Vegas casino games. BetOnline is your #1 online wagering destination. BetOnline, the fastest and easiest way to wager on all your favorite sports and play all your favorite games. BetOnline, where the game starts. And of course, since Christian Pulisic arrived at Chelsea, there's been rumors about him leaving, about potentially going to other places to find playing time. And for the longest time, I've always sort of dismissed those rumors because while it's true that Christian needs minutes and that he wants to play and all of these things are true, yes, I've always felt that Christian, like a lot of these players who are at the top of the world's game that are Americans, they're different type of human beings. You got to understand, Christian Pulisic is a guy that at 15, 16 years old decided to leave the United States to go to Borussia Dortmund for an opportunity to play European football. This was at a time where no Americans were doing anything like this. No Americans had risen to that peak in world soccer up to that point. Christian opted to do it, and he opted to do it at a club that had just participated in the UEFA Champions League final, that at the time was one of the best clubs in all of world soccer. soccer that at the time had players like Aubameyang and Lewandowski and Ilkay Gundogan, Royce, just this an incredible roster of players that have gone on to just do about everything you possibly can in European soccer. That's the locker room that Christian walked into whenever he was 16 years old. And he didn't get intimidated by that. A year later, he was on the pitch. A year later, he was forcing players like Andreas Schürrle out of the picture at Borussia Dortmund. That's the kind of mindset that this kid had. The kind of mindset that at 20 years old decided that he was going to go test the waters over at Chelsea Football Club, a club known for demanding greatness, only accepting excellence, and kicking you out if you aren't up to that bar. He showed up to that club, and he achieved that level pretty quickly. I mean, you got to remember, whenever Christian arrived at Chelsea, this is a Chelsea club that had Frank Lampard as a manager, and they were going through this youth movement. They had players like Mason Mount, Reece James, Hudson-Odoi, Tammy Abraham as the striker, and they were celebrating sort of this youth thing. But what happened at Chelsea is what always happens at Chelsea. If you don't make the grade, I don't care if you're a youth player that's come up through the ranks your whole life or not, Chelsea will ship you right out, and that's what they did with Tammy Abraham and a few other players. They just playing her out of the picture. Just to make the point that if you're not making the grade at Chelsea Football Club, it doesn't matter who you are or where you're from, they're going to get rid of you. Christian Pulisic started in that moment, and he was able to survive through that. And then the following summer, what did Chelsea do? They do what they always do. They went out and they spent money. They brought in some big-name players. They brought in Kai Havertz. They brought in Timo Werner. Later on, they brought in Lukaku. They brought in Ziyech. A murderer's row of players that play Christian's position. And what has Christian done throughout that? He's remained steadfast, and he has overcome to the point where he's now, if he's not the starter at the club in that position, he is one of the main players in that rotation. He's just kind of built, everybody says built differently now, but mentally that guy is just built differently. He is looking for challenges, and he is not looking for the easy way out ever. And that's why I didn't think that it was likely that Christian was going to leave Chelsea, because there's not really greener pastures than Chelsea at the moment in world football. Sure, there are other great teams out there, Man City, PSG, Real Madrid. There are other great teams out there, but it's not like there's teams that are significantly better than Chelsea that exist in world soccer. Remember, he won the UEFA Champions League with Chelsea. This is a team that can compete for that. This is a team that can compete for the Premier League year in, year out. And there's just not many better destinations than Chelsea in world soccer. And I never expected Christian to leave and go to a lesser team or even to make a lateral move just for playing time. He always seemed like the type that would stick it out and fight and prove that he deserved to be there, because that's just been his character and who he is his whole life. He's always been a player that's walked into situations where the odds were against him, and he said, screw that. I'm going to show you, I'm going to demand through my play that I be on the pitch, and he's been doing that throughout his career. But now the dynamics have completely changed. Now the future of Chelsea Football Club is completely uncertain. Sure, there might be an owner that comes in and purchases the club before the end of the year, but is that owner going to be willing to do what Roman Abramovich was willing to do to make the club relevant at the highest level of world football? Roman Abramovich, I think he loaned $1 billion over his 19 years to the club. In the last season, he loaned $100 million to the club. So what that means is, we know Chelsea Football Club makes a ton of money around the world through merchandise sales and everything else. On top of that, he loaned an extra $100 million. That's what it takes to make the club relevant at the top of world football. How many owners out there are going to be willing to do that? How many, the American businessman owner gets a lot of flack out there in Europe for owning clubs and treating it like a business and not spending more than they make. How many people are going to be willing to come in? It seems like the only people willing to do that would be like oligarchs and, the oil state people and people like that. Is that what Chelsea wants? I don't think Chelsea's going to go that direction considering what's happening currently. But anyway, that's global politics. That's a whole nother discussion. The question is, at this point, what happens with Chelsea and what happens with Christian Pulisic? Already, the sharks are kind of circling the blood in the water. I saw a report that Juventus is interested in a handful of players, including Christian Pulisic. There's going to be other clubs interested in kind of scooping up what they can from Chelsea while they're weakened in this state. It's going to be really fascinating to see what happens at the end of the season, and especially these storylines with like Thomas Tuchel left PSG because he didn't want to deal with the politics at PSG, and he gets put into quite simply the most interesting political club situation in the last 50 years or so, maybe ever in world soccer. What's Thomas Tuchel's future with the club? What's Lukaku's future with the club? A player who already expressed that he's upset in a lot of different areas, and now it seems to have lost his starting spot to Kai Havertz. What's going to happen there? I have a feeling there's going to be a ton of unrest. There's going to be a ton of just awkward locker room moments at that club. I mean, think about it. If this was your place of work, if this is where you did business, would you not be talking? Would you not be trying to figure out other plans? Would you not be trying to get out? I have a feeling that's what's going to be happening with Chelsea for the end of the season, and that means for players with a lot of value like Christian Pulisic, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. Now, where would I like to see him go? I said before, Christian's at the top level of world soccer right now, so I would like him to maintain that. If Chelsea's not going to be the top level of world soccer anymore, maybe it is a time for a lateral move. And personally, boy, I'd like to see him stay in the Premier League. I think it's so important that Christian is playing for a club that speaks English, because it opens up so much information for the United States as an English-speaking nation. We get access to all the all the Chelsea YouTube channels, all the Chelsea rumors, all the blog sites, everything. Everything is stuff that we can read, as opposed to, the players playing in France or the players playing in Italy. We kind of have to get translated that. The players playing in German, we have to get information translated in order to understand what's really going on at the club. Playing in the Premier League offers that. So, boy, would it be interesting to see a Christian Pulisic playing at Manchester United or Manchester City or something like that. That would be absolutely fascinating. Now, the rumor out there is Juventus is interested in Christian Pulisic. That was a rumor prior to all this going down. There was the rumors beforehand about Bayern Munich as a possible destination for Christian Pulisic. Either way, it's going to be absolutely fascinating to see what happens with Chelsea throughout the end of the season, not just with Christian Pulisic's situation, but the Champions League is ongoing. All the player situations are ongoing. This Roman Abramovich situation is ongoing. I think all of this stuff is unprecedented in world soccer, and it's just going to be absolutely fascinating to watch to see how it all plays out. So I'm curious for your thoughts on the subject matter. What do you think about Christian's situation at Chelsea? Do you think that he should kind of stick it out and wait for new ownership? Do you think that he should be looking to get out of the club while he still can? Can he even get out of the club since Chelsea can't sell players? What in the world is going to happen with Christian Pulisic? Let me know in the comment section. As always, si puede hablar español, dígame un comentario en español. If you want to see the podcast, if you want to check out the videos in podcast form, the Yank Report podcast is available everywhere you get your podcast. If you're still watching, make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, all that good stuff. My name is Sam, and this is the Yank Report, brought to you by Bet Online.